Okay, good evening. Very warm welcome to the Rushcliffe Borough Council's March Cabinet meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that the Cabinet meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. A recording of the meeting will be available afterwards on the Council's YouTube channel. In addition, I have to mention under the Local Authorities Executive Arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information England Regulations 2012, other people may film, record, tweet or blog from this meeting. The use of such images or sound recordings is not under the council control. I would like to have welcomed any opposition group leaders and members of the public, but we seem to have an empty there. So I think we'd like to move on to the first item on the agenda. Apologies for absence, please, Ms. Richardson.
There are no apologies for absence.
Declaration of interest. Okay. Could I propose to accept the minutes of the previous meeting? Councillor Edwin, second Councillor Moore. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Citizens' questions? None received? No. Opposition group leaders' questions? None received. No. Okay, so moving to item 6 then. Revenue and capital budget monitoring 22-23 financial update. Q3, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. This is the report of the budget position for both revenue and capital as at the 31st of December last year. The report for the third quarter of 22-23 and overall shows a positive picture. There is a predicted 1.72 million efficiency, primarily as a result of business rates pools, additional investment income and additional grants. This position could change in the final quarter, probably will change in the final quarter. But currently this money is earmarked to assist with some current cost pressures and to cover reductions in the value of pooled investments, which are at £973,000. It's also being used to enhance some current service challenges. Some of the cost efficiencies are of interest, particularly a large increase in investment income. I think we're all aware of the increase in higher interest rates, increased cash balances, increased planning income, and increased usage of our Walton Golf Course, which is good news. This has been tempered with increased staff agency costs, plus lost income from the delayed developments at the Bingham Hub and the crematorium. However, at this moment in time, pleased to see these are back on track. Feedback is that Bingham is particularly busy and generating good revenue, soon to be followed by the crematorium. Other factors that have caused pressures in this quarter are obviously staff salaries paid from November, which added £550,000 to the budget. Inflation now appears to be peaking, but during this quarter we hit 11% inflation, which affected all departments, particularly our energy costs. The capital budget, as usual, is affected by delays, ones I mentioned earlier, and in completion of major projects and decisions made to defer certain projects until next year. The overall capital budget, including carry forwards, is 22.2 million, of which we anticipate spending 18.5 million, resulting in an underspend of 3.7 million, which will be carried forward. This carry forward plus capital receipts means currently we do not have to borrow. Overall, the financial position in both the revenue and capital budget is positive, bearing in mind the current economic climate. And I'm pleased that the local government finance settlement has delivered some clarity on future funding, including a new round of new homes bonus, which we were not sure we would get. Also, a further grant to ensure local authorities get an increase of at least 3% in core spending power over the next 2 years, which equates to 326,000. The government have again deferred resetting business rates, new homes bonus and fairing funding review until 2025-26. Overall, the report shows a very satisfactory picture, shows we are keeping tight control of expenditure whilst maximising income streams and opportunities. For the purposes of the meeting, I will read the recommendations and propose them. It's recommended that A, the expected revenue budget efficiencies for the year of 1.723 million and proposals to earmark this for cost pressures. The capital budget efficiencies of 3.758 million, including various reprofiling stated in paragraph 4.7, included in the MTFS to full council, and the expected outturn position for special expenses to be 3,200 below budget. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Edwin, thank you.
I think it's fair to say that this report shows that even against a challenging background, we can still manage our finances positively. And Councillor Moore highlighted in particular that we have high agency costs. A large amount of this is to cover planning, but I think it's fair to say that even with the extra costs, we're still delivering a service on planning that's possibly better than any of our other local authorities. And I certainly know from local architects and agents that they still see Rushcliffe as the best in terms of getting things done, even if we know that we could possibly do better ourselves. Even though capital receipts are down substantially on forecast, we can still meet any borrowing requirement from internal resource, which is always good to see. And I think it's, again, Councillor Moore referenced the pay settlement. And I think it's worth mentioning that our approach to the pay settlement this year has meant that those on lower pay have had a significant increase, and those who can most afford it have settled for a capped cash increase. It's a shame that other sectors in the public sector don't show such pragmatism. As ever, Peter Linfield and his team continue to do an outstanding job managing our finances, and we are continually grateful for their hard work and dedication. So I'm very happy to second this recommendation.
Thank you. Any other comments on the budget? Could I just ask, the tree preservation works, I presume that's trees all on our land, isn't it? So it's all our assets, aren't they? It's not general work, I presume. Councillor, Mr. Linfield, you?
Yes, that is correct.
That's correct, is it, on that? I think the other very good note on this is the golf club. We sat here some years ago thinking, what are we going to do with the golf club and where it was going? And it seems it's one of the very positives that came out of the pandemic, and to see those numbers coming out of there is really good. And I think endorses the investment we actually made initially, wasn't it, in changing rooms and things, and hopefully some of the plans we have for later this year as well. And again, it's a very important asset in terms of our leisure strategy. So no, that's really good news. And just to echo, take back your team, please. Mr. Linfield, say very appreciative of the work they do in different conditions in terms of things changing so much and the financial pressures, and also obviously Councillor Moore for excellent work bringing this together in this report. So I think is excellent the health of the authority. Obviously uncertainties and headwinds ahead of us, as we always say with this, always being cautious, but certainly very few councils will be going into these the future with this sort of strength of their financials right across the board. So proposed by Councillor Moore, setting out those recommendations, seconded by Councillor Edwin. All those in favour to accept those recommendations? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item is the support to the Rushcliffe Youth Forum. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This report comes on the back of a couple of motions that have come to council over recent years, which have looked to try to find ways in which we can engage young people more closely with the democratic process and involve them in local decision making. And one in particular motion came forward for proposing that we create a new youth council for the borough. The motion was lost, but we did refer the issue to scrutiny to look at and consider what might be appropriate means by which we can get better engagement of young people with our work and with the work of democracy in general. So scrutiny reviewed the options, and in order to take forward the view of whether or not we develop a new body or not, took stock of what was already in existence across the borough. As you can see at paragraph 1.2, Rushcliffe already has something called a youth forum, which is chaired by the representative for Rushcliffe on the National Youth Parliament. The text in the paper is a little bit confusing. We don't have a Rushcliffe Youth Parliament. We have a National Youth Parliament, and we have a Rushcliffe representative on that parliament. And that individual, supported by Nottinghamshire County Council, also chairs our Rushcliffe Youth Forum. And of course, the County Council supports this because they have statutory responsibilities for young people, which we as a borough council don't have. I think the youth parliaments and similar sort of forums across districts and boroughs are a great way for young people to take part in debates, to have discussions on policies that are important to them in the areas that are priorities for young people, which, despite our best efforts, we may not be entirely aware of in detail, the sort of things that matter to younger people across the borough. The discussions at the scrutiny group were well attended. Nottinghamshire County Council Youth Services also came along, and that work has led to the recommendation that's before the Cabinet this evening. The background to this particular motion is set out at paragraph 4, and a number of other nearby council districts have some similar sort of forum, but they operate with varying degrees of success and engagement. The most successful ones seem to have extremely good support, both from the Youth Parliament member for that particular district, the National Youth Parliament member, and from Nottinghamshire County Council Youth Services Department. So I think it's important that both of those two things are part of any proposals. The scrutiny process concluded that the existing youth forum for Rushcliffe was essentially a youth council by another name, and that there was no need to establish a new body. However, it's clear that engagement with the existing youth forum has been quite patchy, and sometimes numbers are quite low, especially since the pandemic. Unlike the County Council, we don't have as a borough direct contact with schools, and if we were to set up a new body from scratch, we would need a budget and resources to support it. And rather than do that and reinvent the wheel, the Cabinet's being asked to consider the support set out in paragraph 4.12, which is essentially to reinvigorate and come alongside the existing youth forum, and to look at things such as perhaps offering the arena, the council chamber, for 1 or 2 meetings a year for the forum, give them a sense of what it might be like to be in a sort of democratic forum, to attend meetings both as officers and for elected members to attend those meetings as well, to consult with the forum on things that we might be proposing on strategies and policies from the council, and to increase publicity to attract new members and support perhaps to get better web presence and PR and marketing to encourage young people to engage with the process. So I think there's lots of interesting things that we could do that are not requiring new budget investment or new staff resources, but which could be really quite effective in making this work. Since the paper was written, I understand that unfortunately the rep for Rushcliffe that sits on the National Parliament is standing down to concentrate on his studies, which is absolutely fair enough. And we've said we will work with the County Council and schools to support the process of recruiting a new representative to come on board and have this youth council as part of their remit. So it seems to me this is a great opportunity to build on something that we already have, but to reinvigorate it, to get young people involved in local decision making and priority setting. I think it's a really good move for the borough. So I would recommend the proposal, paragraph 2, to support the existing forum for the next couple of years to help it grow and develop itself, to Cabinet for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor English.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I do concur with what Councillor Brennan says about the existing forum that's in place. It's important that young persons do have a forum to have their say. After all, they're our future. We've got to respect, accept and value their views. And, you know, they're prepared to take over the planet from us old folk. There's 2 sentences in the report that sort of validate that proposal to me. 7.3 is encourage engagement with young people in democracy and make sure their voices are heard. And also in 7.4, the Youth Forum presents a safe and effective way for young people bringing the issues that are important to them to the attention of decision makers. So that's the important bits to me. So yes, there are risks, as the report details, but we've got to be inclusive to all our residents and none more to those who will inherit that the decisions we're making today. So I'm happy to endorse and second the recommendation to support the existing Rushcliffe Youth Forum for the next 2 years to help expand membership, increase awareness, increase opportunities for collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I think just a couple of points on this. I think it's a good idea that Councillor Brennan said, allow them to use the arena facilities like that. I think would be good and show democracy as the grown-up world. I use grown up in a loose term, Mr. Linfield. I think the other thing is as well. This is I think an excellent process. This actually came from a motion at full council, which although it got rejected, we amended it, but we took commitments to bring it to scrutiny. So it's in the full cycle to make a recommendation to cabinet. It's been considered and make that decision. I think that's really good for democracy and for anybody on the council to see that actually motions make a difference, full council makes a difference, and this is the full process with that. And as we said, it's really important to engage. Particularly, I've written down leisure services is one particular aspect that I think the youth of Rushcliffe can play a big part in shaping those services in the future, because obviously we want them to be very much involved in engaged, healthy lifestyles, and with our incredible and wonderful facilities like we have in Bingham, etc. It'd be good to have them play a more active part maybe as we go forward. And lastly, with the rep who stood down, maybe I could be considered to go on this, and so I might have more time on my hands. Is that don't put that in the minutes, please, Mr. Richardson. So no, I think it's excellent to have that voice, and delighted that we can bring this today. So recommendation brought by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor English. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's carried. Item 8 is the endorsement of the plan for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Rural England Prosperity Fund 23-24. Councillor Edderby.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. The UK SPF, the Shared Prosperity Fund, was first considered by Cabinet in July 22, and that was after evaluating the guidelines from the government. And this, of course, is money that was promised as a replacement for some of the European funding that was spent locally. And what we have found with it is that it actually delivers money locally much better than European funding. In our first year, we've spent £312,000, and that has been spent in place and on business, and communities in place and on businesses. And it's allowed us to have initiatives such as further improvements at Rushcliffe Country Park, reed clearance on Grantham Canal. We've run some cost of living support workshops and a number of other things in community in place. In terms of supporting local business, we've been able to employ an advisor to support local businesses in our high street, and so it's been money well spent. The other area that we can support is people and skills, but that money kicks in the third year of the round of spending. And what we're looking at today is the proposals for 23 and 24, so the coming financial year. And Rushcliffe has £624,000 to spend in this year, and it's split between community in place at 325,000 and business support at 274,000. And the proposed allocations are set out in section 4.7 and 4.8 of the report. 4.7 covers business and 4.8 covers community. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's a fairly comprehensive list of ways in which we can use that money to support our communities and businesses. Section 4.13 sets out the amount that the Rural England Prosperity Fund and how that's proposed to be spent. Again, £80,000 for businesses to bid for, and examples of projects that they can bid for will be diversification of their businesses, net zero infrastructure, supporting rural business hubs, and supporting a visitor economy. In the communities in place, we have £69,000 available. We'll be calling, after, assuming we endorse this tonight, that there will be a publication put out to our communities and businesses, and we'll be inviting applications between £10,000 and £40,000 from interested parties. We'll be looking for match funding in certain instances, and in the case of businesses, if they come forward for a business grant, we'll be expecting a 60% match funding. The community match funding, we'll be looking at a lower level at 30% match funding, and that can be either financial or in kind. But in community in place, it's not mandatory. But obviously, we'd like to see some sort of commitment from communities that there will be some match funding. But depending on the strength of the bids, it may not be mandatory. And we'll be looking at bids to be accepted from the end of April once the papers are published and released. The governance proposals are set out in sections 4.19 through to 4.22, and the key points, and obviously it's very important with this money that proper governance is in place. The key points are basically that officers will continue to refine the programmes as they unfold, and the leader, chief executive and section 151 officer can agree to any changes to those proposals as we move forwards. Grants will be assessed monthly by report to the portfolio holder for business and growth, and sign off of those grants will be by the section 151 officer and the director of growth and economic development. And quarterly, there will be a quarterly report to the strategic growth board to keep the strategic growth board up to date with those grants that we're giving out. Monthly monitoring by of the strategic of SPF and REPF project board will ensure that spend is delivered on and all of the projects are on track. So it's recommended that Cabinet A recognises the UK SPF activity delivered in the financial year 22-23. B endorses the proposals for UK SPF and REPF for 2023 and 24. C delegates sign-off of refinements to proposals for 23-24 to the leader, chief exec and 151 officer, with both revenue and capital implications reported in future financial reports to Cabinet and the medium-term financial strategy to full council. And finally, D delegates the sign-off of grants awards for UK SPF and REPF to the 151 officer and the Director of Growth and Economic Development in consultation with the portfolio holder for business and growth, following officer recommendations based on assessment and moderation.
Have a seconder. Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Well, £3 million in these funds to be spent in Rushcliffe is a good thing by any standard. And I'm pleased to say that I'm pleased to see the process that's been put in place to spend this money. And I'm also pleased to see practical, local, visible expenditure within the communities. Extra green spaces, energy conservation, improvements for local community and sporting facilities are all very important for our residents. Just to stress again, it's very important these improvements can be seen and be clearly visible. The one major talking point in my part of the world is the work that's been done on the canal, and that has had massive positive good views everywhere I go to say, where's this money come from, Gordon? How's this happened? When I explain about these funds, they just say this is really, really well spent. We can all see the results on the canal, and we hope that moves forward. So to me, that in fact it's visible and appreciated. So I very much support this, the process of spending this money, and I look forward to seeing a variety of really interesting applications coming forward. I'm very happy to second it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Upton.
Well, I'd just like to say that for those who are on the online audience, it may sound incredibly complicated and detailed, but I echo what Councillor Moore says. This is giving a significant amount of money to the borough of Rushcliffe for projects that are, I believe, got to be highly visible to many, many of the local communities. So it's a good thing. And I think, as Councillor Edivine said when he introduced it, you know, this by and large replaces a lot of the former European regional development funding, and it is targeted with real money to Rushcliffe Borough on local projects. So I think it's a good report, albeit rather complicated in its processes and procedure.
Yeah, thank you. I think the other thing to note on this is the governance as well. It's good that there is control over, and I'm delighted. Obviously, we've got the strategic board, which mentioned in there that we set up some years ago. So we already have that in place. That I see was a requirement in terms of the governance on this. So it is important. I presume at some point it may even go through scrutiny at some time to make sure the money has gone right and the programme's delivering exactly what it should do. And as opposed to European money, which we know at times can be very bureaucratic, very slow, this should be a lot more direct and more accountable as well. So I think this is a great move, and look forward to seeing the projects come to fruition. That they need a different board going up, don't we? Not a blue plaque, we need a green plaque, don't we? Rushcliffe on, Rushcliffe funded funds, don't we? Instead of the stars of the EU. So excellent. If we can take then this to the vote for the proposal set out by Councillor Edivine, seconded by Councillor Moore. All those in favour? Thank you very much. And then the last item is the revised off-street car parking strategy for 23 to 26. Councillor English.
Thank you. Well, this report sets out the key elements to the revised Rushcliffe off-street car parking strategy for 2023 to 2027 from the current one, and that's the original one, which was supported by Cabinet back in May 2018. The revised strategy addresses the supply and management of the council's off-street car parks, designed to encourage short-stay parking and reflect local variations in the demand for parking. So the council operates 29 off-street regulated car parks, 13 of them enforced by civil enforcement officers, and levies for paying display charges on 8 of those. The council prioritised short-stay car parking over long-stay provision. Whilst there is stay of provisions from up to 2 hours to 12 hours maximum, the council operates a non-uniform tariff policy based on local need and usage. So this revised strategy will continue to focus on the 10 main points of objectives identified in the previous off-street car parking strategy. And they are to sort of maintain the viability and vitality of district and town centres, ensuring the needs of shoppers and visitors are prioritised, to encourage short stay rather than all-day parking, to make sure enforcement is fair and consistent in its operation, to improve traffic flow and reduce congestion, to encourage the use of more sustainable modes and smarter choices, to provide access to key services for people with special needs and mobility difficulties, the reduction of carbon dioxide and nitrogen dioxide emissions, the negative impacts of parking on the streetscape and environmentally sensitive areas, and to improve the efficiency of the council's parking services, and revenue to reinvest in parking services and to support local economic and social vibrancy. The income is now back at pre-pandemic levels, and the usage remains constant. Is consistent and is expected to exceed £748,000 for this coming year, 22-23. The council also receives an income from the surplus generated by enforcement carried out for the off-street parking, and in 2021-22, this amounted to just over £9,000. Working closely with the Midlands Energy Hub, the council has been successful in securing over £1 million in funding to provide a number of vehicle charging points across the borough, and we can be proud of the park mark accreditations of excellent to a number of the council's car parks. Along with the focus of day-to-day management of the current car parks, paragraph 4.14 outlines the future initiatives for this strategy. It's important that our charges are not a restriction factor to deter retail customers, but they are good value for money, especially when comparison to others not too far away. I'd also like to put on record praise and due recognition to the council with their free and free after 3 initiatives in helping post-COVID recovery to the high street economy. The council could decide not to proceed to adopt this revised off-street parking strategy, as it's not a legal requirement. However, the reasons stated in paragraph 3.1 provide a strong driver to support the adoption of this revised strategy to continue to help shape the future of off-street parking provision and its operational delivery. It is a living document as such and will constantly change to flex and meet the changes, needs and best interests of Rushcliffe. I believe the council has got it right so far, and this report supports taking that desire forward. So I'm happy to endorse the recommendation that Cabinet approves the council's revised off-street parking strategy for 2023 to 2027, And B, agrees that the Director of Neighbourhoods to be delegated to make minor amendments to the strategy in consultation with the relevant portfolio holder to ensure the technical and legal accuracy of the document during its lifespan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor English. Seconder, Councillor Upton, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Change is happening all the time, and I believe we need to respond to it, and no more so than in how we travel, when we travel, and if by car, where we park and how we pay for the parking. Our cars are also adapting to climate change with the transition to electric power and the need for charging points. Off-street car parks can have significant effect on the economic vitality and resilience of our town and village centres, as just been said. And that's why we focus on short stay and varying tariffs based on local needs. So it's very relevant, I believe, that we review and update our street car parking strategy since it was first introduced back in May 2018. This revised strategy for 2023 to 2027 looks forward and tries to anticipate the changes that lie ahead for cars and off-street car parking in Rushcliffe in what I believe to be a rapidly changing sector. It's rightly an active document that I believe will meet the challenges and the best interests of our residents for off-street parking in Rushcliffe in the next 4 years. So I'm very pleased to second the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Adams.
Yeah, I think it's quite important as well to recognise that, you know, we reinvest this money back into our future car parking requirements, etc. And that it's not, you know, we've worked hard to make sure that our charges are not excessive. You can go to some places and the charges are eye-wateringly excessive to park a car. And so, you know, we are providing a service to our residents, and it's not a cash cow as it can be in some councils. And I think that's a really important point.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I think the other very important point that was raised by Councillor English was the fact that we've got our income back after the pandemic as well. I think that's a key, and a lot of councils have been really struggling, and particularly at Christmas. And I think again it's a testament to the vitality of our high streets, and that people actually want to remain in Rushcliffe and use our facilities. But we should never be complacent, so I'm delighted that we're doing this review, and so we must also always keep our car parking competitive, not just in pricing but in facilities as well. So I think everything from lighting, access, etc., it is really important. And I think, I say, our car parks are certainly comparable with perhaps the very best. So this is an excellent report, and thank all the officers and the team who've worked on it. So recommended by Councillor English, seconded by Councillor Upton, with the recommendations set out. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. I think that is the last item on the agenda. Time now to pack my bag. I said to Kath today, 10 years ago, I sat on my first cabinet. I sat at this very table at the side there. I have a clue what I was talking about, or what I presented, but it's been an absolute delight and a pleasure to serve, and look forward and wish everybody the absolute very best, whoever will sit in this very, very privileged position. So,
What's wrong with April?
no, there's no cabinet in April. It's Perda. I wish they'd follow the regulations and rules sometimes. Disappointing in cabinet, if you could admit it, that, by the way, sometimes awareness do that all. But no, we wish all the cabinet all the very best in the future. And I'm sure to see, I'll be watching somewhere in Zoom before I watch Coronation Street in my dressing gown at home. So all the very best. Have a safe journey home. Thank you.